The Capitol, state lawmakers are trying to make progress this week toward banning the use of the so-called LGBTQ panic defense in court. A new bill is scheduled to be heard in the Senate this week. 13 on Your Side political reporter Josh Alburtus looks at what it is and why those pushing for it say it comes down to humanity.
October 1998. 21-year-old Matthew Shepard walked into a bar in Wyoming State where he was approached by two men who later that night tied him to a fence, beat him, and left him to die. Later, as both of his attackers pled or were found guilty of his murder, one attempted to use what was dubbed a gay panic defense, claiming the knowledge of Shepard's sexual orientation as a gay man was what caused the killer to act violently.
At its very core, the implication is that members of the LGBTQ community are less human and therefore crimes against them are less severe.
What happened to Shepard would ultimately go down as one of the most infamous instances of violence against and murder of a queer person in American history. Now, 26 years after Shepard's killing, lawmakers in Michigan are hoping to ban the use of LGBTQ+ panic defenses in the state.
It doesn't really line up with the welcoming message that we've been really successful in promoting, but we clearly have some work to do, and eliminating this defense is an easy step and a common sense step in that direction.
According to the latest tally from the National LGBTQ+ Bar, 18 states and the District of Columbia have banned the defense. Arizona, Florida, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin also have active legislation alongside Michigan. The bill's author, herself a member of the LGBTQ community, says she's heard from others how important they feel it is to ban the practice.
There have also just been individuals that have reached out talking about why this is important, about how, they fear that if something happens to them, the person that attacks them, or even worse, will be able to use this defense, and then they will have to basically argue for their own humanity in front of either a judge or a jury.
Opposition that was brought to her about the bill, she said, was over the inclusion of transgender individuals in what would be a ban of this defense based on someone's real or perceived gender identity or expression, in addition to gender and sexual orientation. One local advocate, however, saying it's especially important that trans people be included.
Our trans community are even more vulnerable, and even they're dying at sky high rates. Like, we are constantly, having to hold vigils and put out statements, and it's just alarming at how much this is happening, and people don't even realize it.
After passing the House late last year, the bill is now set for a Senate hearing later this week.
A lot of work went into the bill. We worked with some prosecutors on the specific language. We looked at what other states were doing. So it's my hope that we can pass it out clean from the Senate.
So, Josh, what does the path forward look like for this bill?
Well, if passed through Senate committee this week, it would move on to the full Senate, and if the Senate passes it without any changes from the House version, it would be on its way to Governor Whitmer. However, if the Senate passes any amendments, any changes to that House bill, it would need to be sent back to the House for another vote on that new version. But given that the bill passed the House on a party line vote, a new evenly divided House since January, and at least through April, could delay the process.
We'll continue to follow. Thank you for that, Josh.